Beautiful, clear Halloween morning here at the trailhead to the Monte Cristo ghost mine town, historical site and trail. Monte Cristo was founded in the early 1880s, 1890s as a mining town. Mining claims came in after large deposits of silver were discovered from prospectors in the region. So we'll be checking that out today. I'll be checking out a mine a little bit outside of the town in Gothic Basin, so that ought to be fun. And I'll just show you some of the historical stuff along the way, have a few laughs, hopefully don't die 2,000 feet underground. That's all you can hope for, right? So this trail heading into Monte Cristo here, not the hardest hike in the world, pretty flat in terms of elevation gain. I think it's like 600 feet over the span of like 4 or 5 miles. But it does have historical significance, because what we're walking along now, and for a good chunk of the trail, is the old Monte Cristo, the Everett to Monte Cristo Railway, which used to run between here and the city of Everett, which is about an hour west here in Washington State. And I'll throw some photos up on the screen of what that once looked like. So along the way, I will stop a couple times and show some small sites along the way. I believe the railroad ran from about the early 1890s to about mid-1930s. At that point, they tore most of the railroad up and converted it to a standard roadway, so people could drive their cars into town. And I think that lasted all the way until about the mid-80s, when the bridge finally washed out and they just decided to abandon it completely because the one business left in town burned down. I'll show you where that used to be when we get there. I'm now here, about a mile into the trail, on the bridge you used to be able to drive your car across to get into town. This is the untouched portion of it. Obviously, not the most structurally stable. I would not recommend walking on it, but I do so anyway. And you could still drive your car into town until about, I believe it was 1986 or 87. I think it was the mid 80s, something like that. I'll put it up on screen if I'm wrong. So there's the small portion I just crossed back there. And then turning, we have another little section up here. I think this part was restored by the Monte Cristo Preservation Association. I may be wrong on that, but gives you a beautiful view of the river as you pass over it, which I'll give you a cool view of. One of the first historical sites we have here along this stretch of the trail is the old site of the Whedon House, which was basically a mining headquarters building, sort of, along the Everett Monte Cristo Trail. Machinery would be tugged in here by train, and it would be taken up Some of them still up to Monte Cristo, but others up towards, I think this way towards Wheaton Lake. Like I know the Del Campo mine and the Northwest Consolidated mines are up that way. So they'd stop the train here, unpack some of that gear, and haul that up there. Next up should be the town, but I just want to mention, while we're walking along the old railroad and the road here, it has been notoriously difficult throughout its history to maintain road access to this town. I believe there was a 2 or 3 year period in the 1890s where the railroad got completely washed out and they refused to rebuild it for several years. So for several years, all the miners, all the people who lived in this town didn't have railroad access. And then there was notorious difficulties keeping the tunnels open. There was like rock slides. Some of the tunnels would collapse. I think one of the tunnels, they even at some point just had to blow it completely open to make it an open cut rather than a tunnel, just to try and make it more reliable for trains to get through. And it's just kind of unfortunate that, like, that's one of the reasons this town never worked out. I mean, one of the big ones is Washington isn't the biggest gold state in the United States, and the ore here, as I've heard and as I've noticed, is you don't really find like giant gold nuggets and stuff like you might in like California or something. It's like here you find a bunch of ore and it's got like little speckles of gold in it that needs to be processed. So all the labor and money required to get out here and then get the ore out and then process it, it just was never quite as lucrative as they would have hoped for. So I believe, you know, a ton of mining sprung up in 1890-ish, and it only really lasted considerably for, you know, maybe a decade, and then all the mines die out by about 1910, 1920 in there in any serious capacity. I mean, there are small prospectors still doing work into World War II in the 60s, more so at like the Northwest Consolidated, but a little bit in Monte Cristo, but just not to the same degree. I don't think it ever got to that point ever again, which is unfortunate. It's like, you know, you could have lived your whole life in Monte Cristo, and by the time you got into your 40s and 50s, the town is pretty much dead. Just makes you think, I guess. The mountains are beautiful this time of year. I usually come here in the summer, but here in late October, there's snow on the peaks, which is nice to see. Now this right here is the main trail, but deviating off here for a small view, coming up alongside the river, most of the railroad, like I said, has been completely washed out, or it was ripped up in the 30s to make way for the automobile road. But you can come out to this little spot here and see, to my knowledge, this is, to my knowledge, the only thing that's left of the Everett Monte Cristo Railroad. But I mean, at least in Monte Cristo itself, but I may be wrong about that. I haven't explored off, you know, into the woods or anything, or like off that way. But to my knowledge, this is the last of it. All right, town is just up there, around that corner. But before then, in the spirit of Halloween, I thought I'd regale you with the one potential supernatural experience I've had here. So, about a week ago, I was right here in the morning. It was like 30 something degrees, rain absolutely pouring down. And I finally get to this spot and I decide to take a break right over here, just there because the door's locked, under the only stable roof in the area, just to get out of the rain. And I stopped there for, maybe 5-10 minutes. And when I got into town, absolutely no one around. I hadn't seen any cars for miles when I was driving, and no one in the parking lot. And I'm a pretty fast walker, so I'd be very surprised if people caught up to me, but it's possible. But I just remember when I got done with my break, I walked out here, I looked down that way, and I was gonna head into town, and I just got the strangest feeling, and I turned around, and I looked down this way, and all I could make out was two pillars, it looked like, two pillars at the end of the road there, which is maybe 100 yards, somewhere around there, 80 yards. And I just see these two pillars, and something's off about them, because it's like, I don't think I should see the trees at the end of the trail at this distance, because it was very foggy, rain coming down, all that. And I'm staring at it, and suddenly they break off. It looks like two people walking, and they go like crisscross over each other and vanish onto both sides of the trail without a trace. Which, I mean, the chances of it being a ghost or, Bigfoot instead of just two hikers I happened to catch up to me and like were maybe playing a joke on themselves, playing a joke with me. I understand the chances are, beyond, or it's, not within a shadow of a doubt or whatever you'd say, but I don't know. That's mighty strange to do when you're alone with someone on the trail. But I mean, it's possible. But I mean, I finished hiking, never passed by anyone, never heard anyone else. I didn't see anyone in the parking lot on my way back. But I don't know. I don't know why two ghosts would just do that, if that's what it was, which it probably wasn't, but who knows? So I'll be done chatting. Next stop, Monte Cristo. Coming into town here, and we have our first notable artifact, the remains of this ore car here, which looks like some people shot some bullets through it. But obviously they'd have these in the mine running along the tracks full of ore, and they dump it out at the exit. And to my knowledge, this might be the only, or the closest thing to a complete mine cart in Monte Cristo. I think there's one at the Del Campo mine, back that way. But yeah, so let's get into town here. I am standing here now at what would have been the base of Monte Cristo, so to speak, like right at the foot of where it all started here. Most of these buildings you're seeing were not originally here in the 1890s. I believe these are from about the 40s or 50s-ish, 60s even maybe. And they were part of the last operating business in town, which used to sit right there, I'll throw a picture up, of the Monte Cristo Lodge. So most of these little cabins and sites were, you know, like pump houses for that, or for the guides, or for visitors to stay in. And they've been preserved by the Monte Cristo Preservation Association. But I'll throw some photos up to show you what it would have looked like in the 1890s, right where I am. And actually right here is the turntable for the train. So the train would, you know, the railroad would come in here, swing around, trains would go on this turntable, and it'd turn them around, and it'd send them back towards Everett, back west, over 100 years ago now. All right, I'll take you up. I think this was called Dumas Street. I might be pronouncing that wrong, and I'll show you a close-up of some of these artifacts in here in a second. It's starting to rain, so I'm probably not going to spend too much time on this stuff, going over it as I had planned, just because I'm really worried about my phone getting messed up from the rain. But we have some mine and town artifacts scattered in here for the viewing public to witness. One of the more interesting pieces is right over here. We have an ore bucket, which you would attach this. Oh, it's even got some ore still left inside it. You'd attach this, you'd put a cable through here on an aerial tramway that would have ran all throughout this valley down into town towards the ore concentrator, which I'll show you in a minute. And yeah, pretty cool. As I said a minute ago, one of the last remaining businesses in town, up until the 80s when it burned down, was the Monte Cristo Lodge, which I'll throw a photo of up again. And this is the foundation. You can see there's a bed spring and stuff, and then some random artifacts. I'm not sure if those are from the lodge or if those are from mines, but pretty cool. There's a boiler down there, it looks like, or a furnace. There's the top to a kitchen. And that was the last reason to come into town for most people, was the lodge. So then when that burned down and the bridge washed out, it's like no reason for anyone to come here anymore. Coming up through what used to be Dumas Street, or the main street of Monte Cristo. Not much to look at anymore, except some of these cabins. I believe these were built to be rented out when this was a resort, but some of these might be at least from the 40s or something. So they might be original houses. I'm not too sure about that. Skipping ahead a bit, past the town site, I did pass by some old house sites, but honestly, not too much to see, and I'm not educated enough to tell you about them. But what I do know about is this site here is where the old ore concentrator was. You can see a little bit of the machinery down there and a little bit of the foundations and stuff. And basically they'd have this giant building here that I'll throw a photo up of, sitting right here, and up that way they'd have had all these trees cut down, and they'd have a tramway cable leading down into here. So the ore would come in on those ore, like on that ore bucket I showed you, and come into this site here and get processed to separate the valuable stuff like silver and gold and copper from the useless stuff that was just like rock attached to it. And then the rail line would run through here up on the wooden trusses, and then run out to wherever they needed the ore. All right, see you in just a minute. Next stop here is technically another little terminal that I'll throw a photo up of for the Comet Mine, which you can't see it right now, but up there, about 2,700 feet above me, was the site of the Comet Mine. And it had the as I understand it, the longest aerial tramway in the world when it was first erected in the 1890s. And it'd bring the ore all the way down from up there right to here. And this is what's left of that structure. Hard to believe. A little further up the trail, and this here is the site for another terminal for an aerial tramway. But this was for the Mystery Mines and the Pride of the Mountains mines, which I'll try to point out to you as we exit the forest in a little bit. But this is another place where the aerial tramway would come down and dump ore to be, carted off or processed. I don't believe I have a photo for what that used to look like, but this is where it used to stand. Heading up the hill here towards the mine, and this area is completely unrecognizable compared to what I'm used to seeing in the summertime when all the foliage is here and there's no snow on the ground. But if I'm correct, up in here is the Mystery Mines, at least the 3 mystery tunnels on this side of the hill. And then that little parting in the trees, I believe, is where the aerial tramway used to be stationed. So imagine a huge cable running down towards me and over me, back down towards town. And then right next to it would be another little tramway cable station stuff for the Justice Mine, which is right where the end of my finger was. And I've actually been inside the Justice Mine, probably one of my favorite mines I've ever been into. I've not gone into the Mystery Mines just because those look really sketchy, and I'd rather do that with people with me rather than by myself. But from what I have seen, it is pretty gorgeous in there. But there's a lot of it, and it's not the most stable. All right, I'll check in with you guys in another minute when I get a little more distance up the trail. Small detour here, a little bit down the trail. I'm now at the bottom of where the Mystery Mines are, and I was walking along and I spotted this tramway cable and the remains of an ore bucket, and I believe this is what's left over from the tramway that would have ran from up top Mystery Hill, somewhere up there, all the way across and all the way down back around the corner into town. And it's cool that this stuff is still here to see it. I'm very grateful to be out here. Elevation is rapidly rising as I make my way towards the mine. I've already doubled in the last 20 or so minutes what I did the last 2 or so hours. and I haven't even hit the hard part yet. But yeah, I'll meet you guys somewhere up there. Probably gonna be a little less frequent. I don't want to give too many clues to the exact location of this mine, just because the source I was able to locate it from chose not to disclose its location, just to make sure that it wouldn't become a site where people are stealing artifacts and, you know, graffitiing it or leaving litter, stuff like that. So a couple more stops on the way up, and then we should be at the mine. I kind of wish, you know, in like movies and TV shows, how when the guys are like working or whatever, like in the prison yard, they're like hitting their rocks with the hammers, they're like singing their work songs or whatever. I feel like I need my own little tune to like motivate me when I'm going up trails like this that get this difficult. Is this the real life or 8-bit fantasy? One last place of note before I start ascending to the mine. On this little corner here, I believe, in the photo I'm about to show up, I believe on this corner somewhere was the location of the bunkhouse for the mystery mine, which is nearby. Which I think you might be able to line up the background or something with the mountain. About to head off trail now to the mine, which should be right up there under that waterfall. A lot more snow here than last week, because there was no snow here last week. But I'll make it work. I'll get up there. I'll check in with you guys once I'm towards the top. It's both easier and harder than I thought ascending in snow, because when you're doing this when it's dry, there's a bit of a delay in your decision making when you're putting your foot down, because you can see every single rock and you know where it is safe and dangerous to put your feet. With snow, you have no idea, so that delay is gone. But every few steps, you'll get a tumble like that. So I'm making good pace, but just gotta be careful. I'll reach the top soon. All right, nearly to the top. We have this big tailings pile next to me, this waterfall, and tucked right in there is the entrance to the mine. I'll see you there in a minute. Yeah, I planned to give the synopsis or the overview of the mine from the outside, but due to the really heavy waterfall water and the noise, I thought it'd be better to start in here. And right here at the entrance, we have our first couple artifacts. We got this pipe here, which would have, I believe it was for, there's a lot of different pipes, a lot of different uses. That could be for air compression, for like pneumatic drills. That could be air filtration. That could be a water pump to get water out of the mine. That's possible. But right here, a short distance away, we have an air blower, which they would have used for air filtration in the mines. And then a short distance away, we have the remains of an ore car and another blower. And there's a little lever there on the side that they use to tilt it open. Unfortunately, it's somewhat worn away now. So we have a tunnel off to our right at the start and the main tunnel. I'll take you down the cross cut over here first. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a mine rail left. Gotta watch my feet here, it's a little muddy. So this mine was staked in, I believe, July of 1889 or 1890. It was a gold, silver, and copper mine. Mostly gold and silver, like most of the mines in this area. It used to be connected to the same tramway that I mentioned for the mystery mines. Okay, so here is something you don't always get to see. What you're looking at here is a collapsed audit, which an audit is just another fancy mine word for a tunnel. But this mine used to have 2 entrances, and this was the second one. And I was actually here last week, and I thought this mine had collapsed because I came to this entrance on the outside because I didn't notice the other one tucked behind the waterfall. So when I looked at it from the other side and I saw the collapse, I thought the whole mine had collapsed, but then I did more research and I realized I missed the entrance. But that is a very unique view. You don't usually get to see a full-on collapse like that of an entrance. So I'll double back and take you guys down the main tunnel now. All right, back at the main tunnel, we'll start heading down this way. If I recall correctly, there's, I think, a little over 1,000 feet of workings in this tunnel. So not the biggest in the region, but fairly decent sized mine. Coming up here, we have our next artifact. This is a stand for a pneumatic drill. So this would stand upwards, lengthwise, and attach to the floor and the roof. And it would attach it with these little teeth, these little grooves at the bottom there. And you'd stick a drill onto this to keep it steady, and it would start drilling the ore out of the walls. All right. Got some kind of, I think, backfill or something here. We got some pipes along the ground for air filtration, as well as the rails for the minecart. Gotta watch my head here. A little bit of stalagmites or stalactites, I forget which, starting there. Gotta watch your head in these mines because the height at which they dug them isn't consistent. They'll get really hot, really tall, and then really short really quickly. So you always gotta watch your head. Okay, coming up on our next cool thing to see here. These right here, we got 2 of them. These are called ore chutes. And what these were, oh, there's some oxidization. This one still has a little bit of ore inside of it. Oh, and a stalagmite. What these were for was there's a thing they do in mines called stoping, which basically means they start following the vein upwards, so they start digging straight up, which I might be able to give you a small view of. See, there's a bunch of platforms up there. They'd walk all along that, and they'd be mining up there, following the vein upwards, the vein of ore, and then all the material would be brought back down and dumped into these things, and then the minecart would roll up right in front of it. They'd dump the ore into the minecart, and then the minecart would be trucked out of the mine. But there's some cool mineralization, or whatever you call it, going on here. On the ground too. Doesn't smell great, but thankfully you guys don't need to have that experience. What's left of a ladder, it looks like, so that would have been used to go up in there somewhere. Looks like a little bit of the air pipe is still suspended up here. Just trying to see if I can get you guys a better view. Oh wow. It's kind of hard to see, but that goes back a pretty decent distance. That's tall. That is tall. Some more air pipe on the floor here, and the piece of wood that used to suspend it before it fell down. This part looks like a galvanized steel pipe. There's a little bit of it suspended here. It's tied to the rope. Right here, we have the remains of a dynamite box, I'm pretty sure. So that's where the explosives would have been kept in. And a piece of suspension string. Oh, that's a big mineralization. And then a little bit more air pipe suspended up here. And then it's metal all along here, and then it gets to this box. And then this is one of the rarest things you can find in a mine, at least out here. This is a wooden air pipe, which means this has been here since the early 1890s. So coming up on, or maybe over 130 years old, which is spectacular to see in person. And then that's where it ends. So it must have fallen and disintegrated. And then it continues to be steel. an interesting mineralization. I'm not sure what that is. Here we have some water coming down, I guess from the waterfall outside. It's kind of interesting. Gotta squat down for this part. The roof is getting pretty low here. Little piece of sheet metal. Not sure what that would have been used for. Some more oxidized mineralization here. Looks like we have a small can and some wooden dowels. Those might have used to be pickaxes or tools, I'm not sure. And then that's the end of the tunnel. So I'll see you guys at the entrance, or I'll see you guys outside. After witnessing something as scary as that, you might be wondering, Kylan, why the hell would you come all the way out here, trudge through all this snow, go up, 2,000 feet to some scary hole in the wall and risk your life to, look at air blowers and air ducts? And it's because growing up in Washington, history can feel kind of intangible. Like, they tell you about it in class, like the thousands of Americans who moved east, or the immigrants who came from Asia and Europe and beyond, who came out here and built the railroads, cut all the timber, mined in all the mines. And like, you just hear that and it kind of just goes past you. You don't really appreciate how much work people did to build this state and build this country. And then you come out here and you witness this, and it's kind of grounding. Like, it humbles you. It makes you think about the history, and it makes you appreciate it, because this kind of stuff, it's not going to be here forever. These mines collapse all the time. Like I was telling you, there's an adit entrance right up there, and it's collapsed. You can't go into the mine from that side anymore. One day this might collapse. I have no idea. And it's just like, you got to go out and see this stuff before it's gone, before the mine carts completely disintegrate, before all the mines collapse. Because you think history's always going to be there, but then you read about like Library of Alexandria and little. I mean, that's obviously a much bigger scale, but like, you get the point. Like, history is not always a guarantee. It's not always going to be here for you to see it. So I am so grateful and so thankful that I'm in a position, I live in a time when I can come out and I can do this on Halloween and explore an abandoned mine shaft and just get to feel like I was there, to feel like I understood a little bit of what it might have been like 100 years ago. That's probably where I'm gonna leave the video off. I got a lot of hiking to do back to the car, and then I gotta throw this video together for you. It would be legally and morally wise of me to tell you guys, do not go into abandoned mine shafts. They are not safe. Even though I just hyped them up so much in my own way, I don't think most people would even enjoy doing this, so I don't think it's worth it for most people. If I can't dissuade you, please just be as careful as you can. Don't go alone. I should not be a template to follow. Bring an air detector, bring a flashlight, bring extra pair of boots, Band-Aids, medical stuff, whatever precautions you think would be necessary if you really want to do this, but I would advise against it. But yeah, I think that'll be it for today. I might do more of these if I feel up to them. Probably not this season. It's starting to get too snowy for me, but yeah, glad I got to record all this and share it with you guys. Have a great day. Mama, I wanna beat this game. I'd use a game genie, but that's so freaking lame.